The warning should have stopped him. Every creature in the chamber, no matter how many legs or eyes they had, fell silent the moment she spoke. The woman, tall, with skin that shimmered silver under the artificial lights and eyes that glowed faintly blue like distant stars, held a small vial between her fingers. The liquid inside rippled like living shadow, dark and dense, almost heavy enough to pull the air around it. "If you drink this," she said, her voice low and careful, "you will never be human again." The words hung in the air like smoke. Most people would have recoiled, would have questioned her, or even run. Most would have hesitated. But Elias, standing at the center of the observation deck, did neither. He looked around at the crowd of alien observers. Some were diplomats, their posture rigid, eyes sharp with judgment. Others were soldiers, quietly armed and ready to intervene if he stepped out of line. Scientists in long coats leaned forward, their faces masks of curiosity and concern. Every eye in the room was on him. They all saw a human, fragile, unpredictable, about to make a decision that could change not just himself, but the very perception of humanity across the galaxy. Elias' gaze moved from one observer to the next, lingering on the silver-skinned woman. She was calm, almost detached, but her fingers tightened slightly around the vial. Fear flickered in her expression, though subtle, almost imperceptible. "What happens after I drink it?" he asked, his voice steady, almost casual. She hesitated. For a moment she looked away and then back. "Your body will change, your biology will rewrite itself. You may gain abilities no other species in the assembly possesses. Or you may not survive." A murmur spread through the chamber, whispers like soft winds over metal. Most humans would have frozen, paralyzed by fear. Most humans would have walked away or at least demanded proof. But Elias smiled faintly. "Sounds like humanity," he said. He could feel it already, the weight of expectation pressing on him. Humanity had only joined the Galactic Assembly 2 years ago, and already it was regarded as weak, emotional, untested. Other species whispered about their fragile biology, about their tendency to panic under pressure, about how easy it would be to manipulate them. Elias was tired of it. He stepped forward. The movement was slow, deliberate, almost theatrical. Some of the aliens flinched, their reflexive caution betraying a hint of fear. He reached for the vial. Without hesitation, he lifted it to his lips and drank. The moment the liquid touched his tongue, pain erupted. Not sharp, not fleeting, but deep, all-encompassing. It spread like fire through his veins, twisting his bones, reshaping his muscles, igniting nerves that had never existed before. He fell to his knees. Every fiber of his being screamed. The chamber blurred around him. The faces of observers melted into waves of color and sound, incomprehensible, yet he understood them all. Every fear, every anticipation, every surprise rippled toward him in a symphony of emotion. He clenched his teeth. He would not scream. He would not falter. He had chosen this. He had chosen humanity's potential over safety. The silver-skinned woman rushed to him, her glowing eyes wide. "Why would you do that without hesitation?" she demanded, fear and awe tangled in her voice. He lifted his head slowly, feeling the fire crawl through him, feeling his body shift and stretch beyond what it had ever known. "Because someone had to," he said. The chamber faded into darkness. Not complete black, but a shifting void of light, sound, and sensation. His consciousness felt untethered, scattered across dimensions he had never imagined. He was weightless, yet grounded. He was everywhere and nowhere. Time seemed meaningless. Moments stretched like threads, dissolving into colors he had never named. Shapes moved around him, not physical but alive, as if the universe itself was observing him, measuring, testing. He felt the pulse of stars, the slow drift of planets, and the hum of life forms across systems he had never visited. He remembered Lyra, the woman, though now she was no longer just a woman, her name echoing faintly in the folds of his mind. She had risked much to show him the vial, but even she could not fully understand what would happen. No one could. The Genesis catalyst, that was what she called it, was not just a chemical or a serum. It was a relic of an ancient species, extinct long before humans had walked Earth, species that had transcended biology itself. The catalyst carried the power to rewrite what it meant to be alive. Elias felt the first real changes in his body. His muscles, sinews, and bones adapted instantly. Pain twisted into power. His vision sharpened, extending beyond the visible spectrum. Sounds that once blended into noise became layers, individual instruments in the symphony of life. He could hear the heartbeat of the planet, the vibrations of distant ships, the subtle hum of machines hidden behind walls. He could feel the emotions of the crowd still watching him, fear, awe, anticipation, not as vague impressions, but as distinct sensations he could follow, trace, and understand. As he struggled to remain upright, the chamber around him slowly returned. The observers stared, eyes wide, mouths open, but no one moved. They could not. Elias was no longer a human in their terms. He was something else, something new. He tried to speak, but words felt inadequate. Every thought was amplified, every impulse accelerated. His consciousness stretched, brushing against corners of reality that humans were never meant to touch. Yet in the chaos, a strange clarity emerged. He was alive, more alive than ever. And he understood for the first time that humanity's true strength was not fragility, nor caution, nor hesitation. It was courage, the willingness to step into the unknown. Lyra approached cautiously, holding a hand out as if to steady him. "It is worse than I feared, and yet better," she said softly. Elias looked at her, sensing her thoughts, her doubts, her fears of what humanity might become. "It is human," he said almost quietly. "Everything I feel, every choice I made is human." The observers slowly regained composure, though whispers continued. Scientists scribbled notes frantically, some shaking, some staring in awe. Soldiers relaxed slightly, unsure whether to be afraid or to protect him. Diplomats exchanged concerned glances, realizing that whatever Elias had become, it was no longer predictable. And in that moment, in the silence that followed the storm of transformation, Elias understood another truth. He had changed, yes, but not just himself. He had changed how the galaxy would see humanity forever. Beyond the walls of the station, the stars continued to spin in silent perfection. But now, among them, a new pulse of energy existed, one that carried humanity's courage, curiosity, and defiance. It radiated from Elias, small at first, but growing, stretching into the vastness of space. Somewhere deep in the void, something stirred, something ancient and aware. Elias felt it, a cold presence brushing against his mind like a predator sensing prey. It was distant, yet inevitable, drawn to the energy he had released. He did not flinch. He did not hesitate. He could not. Humanity had stepped forward, and he was the first to cross the threshold. Lyra's voice broke through his awareness. "Elias, can you hear me?" "Yes," he said, and for the first time he understood that the human heart, small, fragile, and defiant, could carry the weight of stars. The chamber remained silent. The observers could only watch. Elias was no longer just a man. He was a beginning. And in the shadows of the station, beyond the sight of everyone present, something ancient and vigilant took note. Humanity had made its move, and the galaxy would never be the same. When Elias woke, he was no longer in the chamber. The light had shifted, soft and diffuse, flowing around him in strange waves. He could feel the station itself, its metal skeleton, the power conduits, even the faint hum of the gravity generators, as if it were an extension of his own senses. His limbs moved without effort, yet every step sent ripples of energy across the floor. He felt different, more than human but not less. Lyra stood nearby, her silver skin glowing faintly in the ambient light. Her eyes, those deep pools of blue, studied him with something between relief and awe. "You survived," she said softly, almost a whisper. "I think I did," Elias replied, his voice hoarse at first, though it quickly strengthened. His throat and lungs felt as if they had been rewoven. Every breath was deep, every heartbeat amplified. He flexed his fingers, and energy seemed to follow the movements, subtle currents tracing along his veins like liquid light. Lyra stepped closer. "The Genesis catalyst, it's incredible. I've never seen anyone survive it willingly. Most who touch it die within minutes." Elias' gaze wandered over the station. Sensors blinked automatically, scanning him. Scientists whispered in the observation decks, their notes moving faster than their voices could carry. Soldiers and diplomats alike watched him as if he were some living weapon. "I feel everything," Elias said. "I can hear the walls. I can feel the power running through the station. I can sense you all like a pulse of life, moving, breathing, watching me." "Yes," Lyra said. "The catalyst amplifies perception. You are alive in ways humans were never meant to be. You can feel the energy of machines, life forms, even the subtle resonance of the universe itself." He blinked and looked at her. "The universe?" she nodded. "Not metaphorically. You can sense what surrounds this station, even beyond it. You can feel gravitational fields, energy flows, the faint magnetic pull of planets light years away. It is overwhelming." Elias closed his eyes, reaching with his mind, feeling the station as a single organism. Every conduit, every control panel, every tube carrying air or water or power became clear to him. He traced the flow of energy, mapping it in his head. He could feel the intentions of those observing him: curiosity, caution, fear, hope, each emotion as distinct as a note in a song. He took a step forward. Energy followed his movement, subtle but undeniable. Objects nearby seemed to respond, as if aware of his presence. A small device on a table pulsed gently, aligning itself with the invisible currents emanating from his body. He realized that he could manipulate the environment without touching it. Not entirely, but enough to make changes, to interact with systems in ways humans had never imagined. Lyra's voice cut through his thoughts. "You have to understand, Elias, this is more than a transformation. The catalyst rewrites biology, cognition, even perception. You may feel human, but you are not entirely." He let the words sink in, and then he laughed softly. "Maybe," he said, "but everything I do, every choice I make, it comes from being human. That hasn't changed." They spent hours together, not speaking much, as Elias explored his new senses. He could track movements of staff and other decks without seeing them. He could hear whispers in distant corridors, footsteps in areas off-limits to humans. Every sensation was amplified, yet manageable. He could filter, focus, choose. The catalyst didn't just give him power, it gave him control. Later, scientists began formal testing. They watched as he manipulated objects from across the room, lifted them without touching, controlled small machines by thought alone. Aliens murmured in disbelief, some scribbling notes furiously, others frozen in awe. Humans watching through observation ports had mixed reactions: fear, envy, wonder. Despite the marvel of it all, Elias felt something else. A small, persistent awareness, like a shadow at the edge of perception. Something in the galaxy had noticed the energy surge released by the catalyst. Something old, intelligent, patient. It was not here yet, but it was coming. Lyra spoke again, her voice tense now. "Elias, the Assembly is nervous. They don't understand. Humans are unpredictable enough, but now you are beyond understanding." He nodded slowly. "I know, I can feel their fear. It's like a tide pressing against me, but that doesn't mean I stop. Humans survive because we face the unknown. That's what we do." They moved to a large observation window, looking out at the void of space. Stars spun in endless constellations, distant planets casting faint light across the darkness. Elias felt the pull of each celestial body, the faint tug of gravity, the drift of cosmic dust. He could see their orbits in his mind, predict their movements, feel their energy. Lyra shivered. "It's beautiful," she whispered. "It's life," Elias replied, "and I can feel all of it." Days passed. Elias learned quickly, his mind absorbing information at a pace no human could match. Languages of alien species became understandable almost instantly. He could anticipate the movements of machines, predict outcomes, even sense emotions before they were fully expressed. But the more he learned, the more he realized the danger. The shadow he had felt before, it was drawing closer. His senses detected a pattern in deep space, something massive, moving with intent. Not a fleet, not a simple patrol, but something intelligent, ancient, and powerful. Lyra noticed his distraction. "You feel it too?" "Yes," he said, frowning. "Something is watching, waiting. The energy I carry, it will attract it." She paled. "It could be dangerous. The catalyst's energy is tempting to those who hunt evolution, those who fear change. You could draw attention you cannot handle alone." Elias smiled faintly, but it was not a relaxed smile. It was a human smile, stubborn, unyielding. "Then we prepare, we adapt. That's what humans do. We face the danger, not hide from it." The Assembly convened a council to discuss Elias' transformation. Alien leaders debated, argued, whispered. Some saw him as proof of human potential, a new form of life that could evolve beyond boundaries. Others feared what he represented: unpredictable, uncontrollable, a wild card in a galaxy obsessed with order and control. Elias listened, sensing every nuance, every intention. He understood the politics, the fear, the hope. He could even influence discussions subtly, guiding the mood, calming fears, easing tension. Not by words, but by presence. The energy flowing from him was undeniable, and everyone in the room could feel it, whether they admitted it or not. Lyra stayed by his side. She explained the cultural nuances of each alien species, translating thoughts and intentions he might otherwise misread. Together, they mapped potential alliances, threats, and opportunities. Elias began to feel the weight of responsibility. Not just for himself, but for humanity. He had stepped into the unknown willingly, and now humanity's fate was tied in some measure to his actions. Night came on the station, or at least what passed for night in artificial lighting. Elias gazed out into space again. The stars were silent witnesses, distant and cold, yet somehow familiar. The shadow was closer now, detectable only by subtle shifts in energy, almost imperceptible. Lyra whispered, "It's coming soon, we may not be able to hide it." He nodded. "Then we do not hide, we adapt. We survive, that is what humans do." As he spoke, he felt the catalyst inside him pulse, responding to his determination. His body, mind, and senses had evolved beyond simple survival. He could plan, anticipate, act, and influence outcomes in ways humans had never imagined. And yet he remained human. Not entirely, but enough that every choice he made reflected human courage, stubbornness, and hope. And in that moment, Elias realized the truth of the catalyst. It did not remove humanity from him. It amplified it. It forced him to confront the essence of what it meant to be human: curiosity, courage, resilience, defiance, hope, in a universe that often punished those qualities. He smiled faintly, feeling Lyra's gaze on him. "I am ready," he said softly. "Whatever comes, we face it." Together, beyond the walls of the station, in the cold void of space, the shadow shifted. It had sensed him. The energy from the catalyst was a beacon, impossible to ignore. And now the galaxy was about to test the limits of human courage in ways no one had anticipated. Elias turned back toward the station. There were systems to learn, people to understand, and threats to prepare for. The assembly may have feared him, but he knew that fear was only temporary. Humanity's strength was not in obedience nor in caution, but in daring to step into the unknown. And he had already done that. The warning had always been clear. The catalyst would change him. Elias now knew exactly how. But even he had not fully understood the scope until the threat revealed itself. It began with a subtle tremor in the energy around the station. Sensors, which normally only measured minor fluctuations, began to spike. Machines hummed louder, lights flickered, and the shadows of the corridors seemed to stretch unnaturally. Elias felt it immediately, the presence of something enormous, cold, and intelligent, moving across space toward them. It was not like any fleet he had seen or read about. It was a single, focused entity, old as the galaxy itself, drawn to the energy that pulsed through him. Lyra came to him, her expression tense. "It's the Nullborn," she whispered. "They hunt species that evolve too quickly. Your transformation, it has alerted them." Elias turned to the viewport. The stars outside shimmered oddly, bending under some force he could feel but could not see clearly. "Then we prepare," he said, his voice calm, steady. "Fear is useless. We survive because we act." The station crew scrambled. Alarms blared, alien diplomats and soldiers moving with controlled panic. Elias, however, felt every movement as if it were his own. He could anticipate every step, every reaction, every mistake. He focused, extending his awareness beyond the station, feeling the tendrils of the Nullborn approaching, probing, sensing. Lyra's voice broke his concentration. "Elias, they're massive. Their ships can collapse entire worlds if they attack directly." "I know," he said. "We don't fight the way they expect. Humans never do." He closed his eyes and reached outward, not with touch, but with thought, with the energy coursing through him. The catalyst had rewritten his body, but it had also amplified his mind. He could manipulate systems, energy fields, even gravitational currents. The Nullborn would find no easy prey here. Outside, the first tendrils of the enemy fleet became visible. Dark shapes, enormous and menacing, moved with intelligence and intent. Their surface shimmered with a void-like energy, absorbing light. Entire sections of space seemed to bend around them. A fleet of this size would normally overwhelm the station in minutes. But Elias felt the flow of power, and he understood. He stepped toward the observation window. Energy radiated from him, invisible but potent, like a storm contained in human form. Machines responded automatically, guided by his focus. Defense grids reoriented, shields strengthened, weapons recalibrated to his direction. He could feel the Nullborn's approach, the way they probed, the way they sought vulnerabilities. "Elias," Lyra said urgently, "you can't hold them alone." He smiled faintly. "I'm not alone." He reached outward with thought alone. Gravity fields shifted subtly around the incoming ships. Energy pulsed in sync with his heartbeat, wrapping around them, constricting movement. Nothing exploded. Nothing burned. It was not destruction, it was control. The nullborn, creatures of intelligence and instinct, could feel resistance, unpredictability, and adaptation they could not anticipate. The fleet faltered. Their formations wavered. The enormous ship slowed, scanning for the source of this human energy. They could not grasp it, could not predict it. They were not designed for adaptability. That was a human strength. Elias extended the energy further. Every movement of the nullborn ships could be countered, neutralized, without firing a single weapon. It was a test of will, of ingenuity, of understanding, and Elias had all three in abundance. Lyra watched, awestruck, as the massive shapes outside drifted, restrained by the invisible currents he controlled. "You're bending space itself," she whispered. "I'm guiding it," he said. "Humans survive because we think beyond limits, we adapt, we find ways no one else can see." The Nullborn's commander, if such a thing could be called a commander, sent out probes. Small, fast, needle-like ships attempting to test his defenses. Elias intercepted them effortlessly. Their movements slowed, their energy fields distorted. One by one, they returned to the larger fleet, confused, hesitant, unable to predict the human at the center. The station's crew could hardly believe what they were witnessing. Diplomats whispered anxiously, soldiers froze in fear, scientists recorded every anomaly. Humans had always been underestimated, but now they realized one human could challenge the impossible. Elias felt the energy pulse within him, responding to the threat, flowing like water into every system, every object. It was overwhelming, yet he controlled it perfectly. For hours he maintained the balance, guiding the Nullborn fleet with subtle manipulations, adjusting, predicting, countering. Lyra remained at his side. "You're saving all of us," she said quietly. "Not just humans, everyone here." "Yes," he said, "but it's more than that. They don't just fear me, they fear what humanity represents. Curiosity, courage, defiance, and they don't understand it. That's why we survive." The Nullborn realized this too. Their movements became erratic, hesitant. They were ancient and intelligent, but their intelligence was rigid. Elias' unpredictability, his adaptation, was impossible for them to calculate. Slowly, they began to retreat. Not destroyed, not defeated in the conventional sense, but forced to withdraw, unable to cope with the human who had become something more than human. Silence returned to the station. Systems hummed normally, the lights steady, the atmosphere calm. Crew members collapsed in exhaustion, some weeping, some laughing in relief. Aliens who had once questioned humanity's potential now regarded Elias with awe. Lyra approached him. "They won't come back, not for a long time. You've shown them that humans are not to be underestimated." Elias nodded, his body still buzzing with residual energy, his mind still aware of every motion, every ripple, every possibility. "We survived," he said simply. "That's what humans do." The assembly convened immediately after. Every alien delegate wanted to witness Elias, to understand what had just happened. Some were skeptical, some fearful, some hopeful. But they could not deny the truth. Humans had evolved, and in the most extraordinary way imaginable. Elias stood before them. He did not shout or demand recognition. He simply existed, radiating energy, presence, and calm authority. He spoke slowly, deliberately. "I am human, and everything I have done because I am human. We adapt, we survive, we rise to challenges others fear to face. That is humanity's strength." The room remained silent for a long moment. Then murmurs spread. Words like remarkable, incomprehensible, and hope rippled through the assembly. Diplomats who had once mocked humans now looked at them differently. Soldiers who had doubted their ability now understood their potential. Scientists, stunned, could barely record the data fast enough to comprehend the phenomena. Lyra whispered, "You've changed everything." Elias smiled faintly. "Not just me. Humans are not limited by their bodies, their past, or even their fears. We push forward, we evolve, and this is only the beginning." For the first time, Elias allowed himself a long look at the stars. They had been indifferent witnesses, cold and distant until now. But humanity's presence, curiosity, and courage had reached them. Something about that energy, something about human defiance, would echo across the galaxy for generations. And in the darkness beyond, the Nullborn had retreated, but their awareness lingered. They had learned a lesson they would not forget. Humans were unpredictable, adaptable, and courageous. And the human at the center of it all, Elias, had become proof of what humanity could become when it dared to step into the unknown. Lyra stepped beside him. "What happens next?" she asked softly. Elias turned to her. "Next, we continue. We learn, we grow, we adapt. The galaxy may fear us, but we will show them that humanity's greatest strength is our willingness to face the unknown. And we will never stop." The station quieted, but Elias felt the energy thrumming through him, alive, aware, connected. The catalyst had rewritten him, amplified him, but it had not erased him. He was still human, more human than ever, a bridge between the fragility and the power of his species. And somewhere beyond the light of distant stars, the galaxy began to understand. Humans were no longer just observers. They were participants. They were challengers. They were survivors. And Elias, standing at the center of it all, proved that humanity's courage, curiosity, and defiance were forces the universe could not ignore. The stars shimmered in approval. The galaxy watched, uncertain and awed. Elias smiled. He had drunk the catalyst willingly. And he had become exactly what humanity was meant to be, unstoppable, adaptable, and unforgettable.